Can Ferrari fight for the 2024 Formula One Constructors Championship until the end of the season? This question starts today's article, a question that our editorial staff has already addressed on several occasions. Before moving on to Scuderia Ferrari and the Maranello team's prospects for the final part of the championship, let's shift focus to the near future of Formula One and what changes are expected starting with the 2025 F1 campaign. After years of stagnation in terms of driver market, we are currently witnessing a real revolution that will significantly change things in the coming months. If you think about it, Red Bull has decided to promote Liam Lawson as the lead driver at Racing Bulls, abruptly firing the old guard represented by Daniel Ricciardo. Italian manager Flavio Briatore, in his new role at Alpine, has already promoted Jack Doohan. The prodigal son of Maranello, Ferrari Jr. Oliver Bearman, has secured a seat at Haas for next year. Kimi Antonelli is about to arrive at Mercedes, announced by team principal Toto Wolff as an official driver, replacing Lewis Hamilton. Not to mention the many rumors that the Argentine Franco Colapinto could also find a seat in Formula One following his impressive performance after replacing Logan Sargent. We are talking about 5 new young drivers who will be on the starting grid. It has been a long time since such a broad generational turnover has been seen in the most important category of motorsport. Doing some math, 25% of the drivers who will be on the grid next year were not present at the starting line of the 2024 racing campaign. A remarkable fact, to say the least. Nonetheless, it must be said that there are other much older drivers who continue to be part of the grid, such as Fernando Alonso or the next Ferrari driver Lewis Hamilton. Some teams prefer not to bet on new talent but rely on the so-called tried and tested drivers, a practice that may or may not work. In this regard, can we say that the current generation of Formula One cars is easier to drive than those of the recent past? Who knows? Or maybe the new drivers are simply much better prepared. Many are ignoring this duality of thought regarding those who sit in an F1 car and grip the steering wheel during race weekends. It is a topic that should be addressed more carefully, as it could lead to several interesting reflections. At this point, let's move on to Ferrari and what remains of the 2024 Formula One Championship. After the first races of the 2024 racing campaign, without any doubt, we could not have imagined an autumn like the one that is about to arrive. The general impression, at the end of spring, was that, although not as clearly as in 2023, Red Bull could win 2 more championships without too much effort given the performance of Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes in the first races. A championship that, up until now, has seen 7 different winners, with 4 different teams raising their colors on the top step of the podium. How wonderful. Precisely for this reason, we cannot help but reiterate a thought. Both F1 championship standings are still open. There are still 6 races left, 3 sprint races, and the much-discussed additional bonus point for the fastest lap. It has been several years since we experienced such an intense and spectacular finale. From an objective point of view, for Formula One, it is a moment of great beauty. It is also worth pointing out that when things went well during the championships of the last 15 years, there were only 2 teams fighting to win, whereas this year we have seen 4 teams show the ability to compete for victory at various moments of the season. The interesting fact is this: not knowing who will have the best cards to play in the next race. Making a prediction is always complicated. However, a thought is necessary. After the Miami Grand Prix, the Englishman Lando Norris was 52 points behind championship leader Max Verstappen, while 7 races later, the gap has only narrowed by a single point. Therefore, being rational, the Dutchman from Red Bull should be able to confirm himself as champion. At the same time, it is also true that the 2 McLaren MCL 38 cars have shown a different pace on any track. That's why, if they stop wasting performance and manage to achieve a couple of 1-2 finishes in the next races, obviously with Lando Norris in front, Max Verstappen would be in serious trouble. From Singapore to the United States Grand Prix in Austin, the various teams have time to best prepare the final developments on the cars and finish the last part of the championship at peak performance. Max Verstappen has a clear advantage. If Lando Norris, for any reason, suffers a retirement, his championship is over as a result. The world champion is putting together a series of superlative performances, unlike his Red Bull teammate. Just think of the Singapore Grand Prix, where he contributed significantly with the 2nd place in the qualifying session, which in fact paved the way for him to reach the 2nd step of the podium on Sunday, and once again be able to limit the damage. When the red car shows the supposed leap in quality, something always happens automatically. These are moments where it's legitimate to have hope until, of course, the cold shower arrives right on time. There is a curiosity that grips fans. We are all waiting to see how Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur, still Ferrari's technical director among other things, will christen the latest innovations on the Ferrari SF24 from the Austin Grand Prix. It's an interesting discussion, considering the fact that if the Italian car performs strongly, or even more so, like in the last races, the prancing horse could become the referee of the 2024 Formula One Championship. If Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc manage to get in between McLaren and Red Bull, or even, on certain occasions, stay ahead of the Woking cars, the scenario would change radically. This context could even keep the Constructors Championship open if Ferrari is able to take down their opponents in the next two races. At this stage of the season, the performance advantage of the MCL38 is truly significant. However, the break will bring insight and, as mentioned, could allow Ferrari and Mercedes to make a comeback. On the other hand, if we think about Ferrari after the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the chances of winning both races, namely the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and the Singapore Grand Prix for Charles Leclerc, were quite realistic. The Monegasque driver could have done it at the Baku City circuit without the mistake after the pit stop, a missed opportunity that weighs heavily. Meanwhile, at the Marina Bay Street circuit, with a different result in the qualifying session, at least second place was undoubtedly within the reach of car number 16. That's why we must talk about an ever-evolving context that is very enticing. It's certainly not easy, but based on what we have seen during this Formula One season, it wouldn't be wise to rule out any competitive scenario. On the other hand, considering everything we have said, if McLaren manages to lose the Constructors' Championship this year, it would be quite a picture to frame, in a negative sense, of course. At this stage of the season, the supremacy of the MCL38 single-seater over its opponents is truly significant and should not be wasted. A car that works brilliantly on every type of racing track and any track condition. So we eagerly await developments starting with the United States Grand Prix in Austin, with the awareness that, one way or another, this Formula One championship will be remembered by fans as one of the most interesting in the landscape of modern F1, especially if Ferrari manages to pull off the so-called major coup. For now, the Italian side has to focus only on the upcoming race at the 5.513-kilometer Circuit of the Americas in Austin, where a positive result is mandatory to keep alive any hopes of fighting for the Constructors' Champions, and then on the Mexico City Grand Prix. After the race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, Ferrari will have a clearer picture and will decide whether to shift all focus and resources on the preparation for the 2025 Formula One car. Considering that all cars will be evolutions of the current single-seaters, the Italian side is expected to show signs of progress and come back stronger next season.